Hello, my name is Erica, and I'm the Dyslexic Trekkie. Religions in Star Trek may seem like a non-subject. First off, Gene Roddenberry was an atheist. He created the Star Trek universe based on his own idealism and personal philosophy related to his concept of atheism. For one thing, the Federation holds with no specific religious ideology, though recognizes the validity of all. Worf's rite of ascension is just as valid as a Jewish boy's bar mitzvah. The Pa in the Bajoran faith and the Sol in Christian faiths may be different, but Starfleet will never decide one means more than the other. His ideas are reflected in how godlike creatures are depicted. In the original series, we learned that the Greek gods were aliens. Q, the most regular character in the franchise that could be mistaken for a god, is made to be a bit of a fool. Not stupid, no. Q is anything but stupid, but he acts like a fool. A part of it is John Delancey is fantastic at physical comedy. His expressions alone are great, but you always get the vague impression that he's having fun at our expense. When he tells Picard he is God, Picard's answer is also telling. "No, you're not," is about the response you'd expect. He's having none of it. But I've seen it said Picard clearly believes in something. He has the wonder of someone looking out into the unknown for answers. You get a taste of why in Picard Season 2, but I think there's a deeper understanding. In the TV series House, a character who is an atheist is questioned by a coworker who is a Christian. To badly quote her, she says, "Humans trying to understand a power great enough to create the whole of the galaxy is like penguins trying to understand trigonometry," or some other math. I honestly can't remember which one. It's not important. The point is, it's called the unknown for a reason. I think Picard sees the idea of a higher power in need of worshipping to be ridiculous, because a power that great, caring about something as small as one planet's sentient life, is a bit absurd. He gets Q, not how he does everything, but why. And he gets his attitude. The fact that he can make sense of him shows he can't be God. There's some flaws in that reasoning, but there isn't all of them. If Christians get to say God came down as his own son to die on a cross and go back up to himself to cleanse us of sins he put in a tree for us to not eat the fruit of, Picard can think any God he understands is default false. But in a way, that's the real point. Religion, all religions, have an issue with making sense to an outsider. We don't talk about it. We look at other faiths and say clearly, they're all wrong. Mine is obviously the one correct faith. It's an interesting disconnect. Star Trek recognizes that the faith doesn't necessarily make sense. It's not important unless you specifically believe in it. Star Trek isn't atheistic as in saying no religion is right, nothing is real, and nothing exists except what's scientifically proven. It isn't saying we've not verified with careful research, therefore we cannot confirm it is. It's not going to stop a faith or negate its validity. It's simply going to make a space for you and go on around that space. Using Worf as an example again, the only time he's stopped from practice is when he sets off an environmental control failsafe. In other words, when he risks endangering the crew. Even then, he's given leave to go to a monastery to help him through what he's facing. Considering the atheistic philosophy of Star Trek, it's interesting exactly how many religions or practices that feel like religions there are. The Vulcan need to separate one from their emotions feels similar to the Buddhist philosophy of separating oneself from suffering. In both cases, finding inner peace comes from cleansing something which causes chaos in one's life. The Tril rituals surrounding symbionts isn't a religion in anything like a normal sense, but there's this creature, which exists for centuries, lives many lives, and then returns home to be tended to by the people of the planet in spaces kept pure. Much of this is medically necessary for the symbiotic life, but the traditions and even dogma that surround the symbionts feels religious. Though we don't see a Beta Z religion, there are some things in what we see in the culture that feel like they could be tied to a past religion, primarily Logzana's title. What are the Holy Rings? And why is the Chalice of Reeks sacred? If the religion isn't active now, then it must have meant something special for these things to have been passed down through the Troy family. And who can forget the very particular marriage ritual? Why do they go naked? I have to go for a moment into Beta canon. In Umzadi, it said, They go naked as to show that those in the wedding have nothing to hide. Again, this feels religious. One has to love the Klingon culture. It's too bad we never hear how they kill all their gods. Is there a story of the epic battle, or were they all images smashed? Maybe if there is an epic battle, the icons smashed were what it represented. Either way, their connection became that of their founder, Kahless the Unforgettable. He became so much a part of their culture that monks brought him back as a clone. I love the idea of the culture. It feels like a mix of Buddhism and Judaism, and the idea of a man, not a god, and the notion of waiting for his return. But one can't talk about religion in Star Trek and not talk about Deep Space Nine. Due to their prevalence in DS9, the Bajoran faith is the most developed. But also, because how DS9 was written, it's also the most cynical. We see the corruption of the faith, the leaders who put their positions over the beliefs of the people. You find the truly devout undervalued, and the believers exploited for social gain. It's a dark expression of religion, but there's something else. The other faith shown in DS9 is the manufactured worship of the founders. Here's a people who found a way to keep from being abused by exploiting the faith of those they engineered to worship them. This is just as cynical as the use of religion with the Bajorans, but here's the interesting part in both cases. The prophets exist. You can literally point to where they live, and they did what it says they did. They sent messages down to Bajoran to help people prepare for what was to come, and they are mostly benevolent, if vague. However, that vagueness is made understandable because they don't perceive time. The problem isn't the prophets. They're doing the best they can. It's the followers of their faith. That's the issue. The changelings are worshipped for creating their child races, and as far as we can tell, they did. But this one is a trickier one. There isn't a virtue in what the changelings did. They reacted to abuse with abuse, and they responded to being terrorized with terrorism. It's a dark and grim way of looking at faith. It's exploitation in its purest form. But is it wrong when those being exploited want it? In this case, I'd say yes. Weyoun was genetically engineered to love Odo. The Jem'Hadar fight for the changelings because they were engineered to fight. They can't do anything else. I don't think this was a reflection of Gene Roddenberry's ideas on religion. Rather, it was something DS9 did with a platform of Star Trek very well. I've heard the argument that DS9 is where Star Trek lost the premise, but I don't think that's true. I think it showed the limit of the premise. The Federation is a collective of individuals from a diverse background who've somehow found a way to work together without losing their value systems. They make room for one another in a way we haven't quite figured out yet, but they show we can. This is extended to the groups who work with the Federation. The allies of the Federation are afforded the same privileges, and when given the chance, so do their enemies. People are permitted to be who they are. They are respected for what makes them who they are, so much so that the term respect has begun to mean, I disagree, but I'm not going to stop you. But DS9 is on the outreaches of the Federation, closer to the Beta Quadrant than the Alpha, and opens up to a region of space so distant that the Federation has no impact. Deep Space Nine forced the show to ask what happens when people from Paradise have to live alongside people who have only held themselves together through faith in something they don't believe in. It's a hard look at a hard reality, but in the end, the idealism of the Federation wins out. The Dominion War isn't won with firepower, it's won when he shows what the people he knows really are. There's one last religion I have to bring up. One last faith depicted in the franchise. Though I haven't gotten to it yet in my Janeway Analyzed, Voyager shows one human religion, or rather spirituality. It's problematic overall. For one, it shows a deep respect for the Native American beliefs of Chakotay, at least by the crew, mostly. But I find it a bit insulting when they imply the religion comes from aliens. I know the producers wanted to explain the purpose of Chakotay's tattoo, but making it what they did felt cheap. If there wasn't an entire franchise based on saying that brown cultures are so advanced because aliens came to give them cheat codes, it might not feel so inappropriate. But something else happens on Voyager. The crew is desperate to find a tie to their home. They crave some kind of guidance. Atheism is a perfectly fine way to live. There's nothing wrong with the values that come from it. But in the situation Voyager finds itself in, the people need something. There is sometimes the feeling of trying his traditions for size, fast food spiritualism, but he's open, and he's willing to help the crew however he can, and a taste of his faith is something he can offer. Whenever he speaks to his spirits, he says they are far from their home, and could some spirit please guide them. Ultimately, Star Trek states the same thing over and over again. There's room for everyone at the table. We have space for everyone. The conservative, the liberal, the moderate, the deeply faithful, and the atheist. This isn't an easy balance to maintain, and it's easy to exploit by those who want to take the table over. But Star Trek tries to show that it can be done. It tests the limits, shows the ideal, and shows what openness can look like. It's one of many lessons we need to learn if any aspect of Star Trek could ever become a reality. Thank you for watching. If you like this subject, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any thoughts, feelings, or ideas on this subject, please share in the comments below. Again, my name is Erica, and I'm the Dyslexic Trekkie. He created the Star Trek universe based on his... Ray, please. Yep, there's our friend. Oh, that damn cricket. I'm going to have to find pictures of crickets and just put them all over this video. Have you figured out speak yet, Ray? Speak? Nope. Speak? Good boy! He sometimes does it. He hasn't quite figured it out. Speak? Good boy! Q, the most regular creature? Ray? I get it. There's num-nums and you want them, and you have your own jar, and it's cool, but you have got to chill out. This is not becoming of an officer. This is why you always come up with the silly officer stuff when I'm... Come on. That damn cricket, I'm going to kill it. And they are mostly benevolent. My mouth gets tight. Yeah. Get out of the stupid position and I'll give it to you. Well, you look like an idiot, Ray. You have to see him, and I can't take a picture right now. He's acting like the fool. B slides in this is going to be terrible, but I'm keeping all your meows for later. Yeah, you meow. This is extended to the groups who work... Yeah. And when given the chance, they do the... Yeah. And when given the chance, they do so... Okay, so do. It's a dyslexic moment. Deep Space Nine forced the show to ask what happens when people from paradise have to live alongside people who've only held themselves together through faith. Yeah, it was hard. Atheism is Atheism's? The Dominion War isn't won with firepower. Yeah, gesundheit.